Yate, Brett, it is so good to have you up here in Canadian territory, but more importantly, I'd say Indigenous territory. The fifth annual conference here for FNMPC has been extraordinary, and your voice to it, of course, from a strong Navajo man to share your experiences in working with your nation, your neighbors, government, and industry. So we're very grateful to have you up here. Can you tell us a little bit about, the message that you're bringing from your people and how your world is changing and how you're actually having some personal time with you, actually leading a lot of it, which is incredible.
Yeah, thank you. It's been really great to hear all the different stories and the idea about how we're going to get to net zero. And I think one of the things I kind of been bringing is this idea that, we need to reframe the conversation around how we speak about each other, how we talk about our land, how we talk about this initiative we're doing. And I would say, we're rich in resiliency. And so, using that resiliency essentially to build the basis for coalition building around how communities can collaborate together to get to those different, milestones that we need to meet if we're going to achieve, net zero by 2050.
Nomenclature is really important. It's about our nations resetting the structure and not necessarily abiding fully to the non-Indigenous structure to make sure that our views, our cultures, our values are brought forward. Can you talk to us about some of that? And then you talked about the goals. Tell me about those goals from a Navajo perspective.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is owning our position going forward. This idea that, something happened to us is what we were born into, so the challenges of the climate crisis are things that we have to own solutions moving forward. And so what we name them, what we call them is really going to represent what we present to our kids and what we hand off, to the next generation. And I think with some of those things, it's about converting our energy systems, taking the past energy industries as lessons as we move forward, making sure that we own our visions going forward, that we invest in ourselves, and we collaborate when it comes time to be able to fill, the gaps we know that will appear in terms of getting to that achievable goal is going to require us to really think strongly, especially in the latter part of getting to 2050. Because the technology has got to advance enough, the workforce has to build up, and the policy has to improve. All those things require collaboration, and I think that's really important about what we're talking about today.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's those relationships. And so as you, and your story is incredible, as you bring in outsiders, if I may use that term, into your nation, and indoctrinating them into your value system, how is that being received? You talk about innovation and partnerships. We have to collaborate across our countries to make sure we get the best of the best. But how are you guys doing that? That's incredible.
Well, the idea is just that there are allies out there everywhere. And one of the things that we have to kind of look at is, within our boundaries, we were kind of left with scraps in terms of
common story amongst our people.
When reserves were created, when reservations were created. So in order to repair them, we're going to have to go out and seek, just as we were when we landed in our respective homelands. We went out and found the best of what the world could provide. We brought it home and we cultivated it. We have to do that same process now when we're talking about energy and talking about economics, is we have to seek what works out there and transplant it back home so that we can cultivate a new ecosystem for future generations.
That's incredibly inspiring, and a lot of people, I did my undergraduate in Northern Arizona University near your territory. Beautiful people, by the way. And Canadians don't understand that our reserves at one point before land claims could fit all in the Navajo Nation. It's a massive chunk of land. But this stretch and what you were telling me, typically the BLM lands, Bureau of Land Management lands, you'd have less say, but you guys are going out and you're actually taking ownership of territories to bring your values to a broader nation outside of your own nation. It's incredible.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I said today was just, we reference them as reserves and reservations, but I like to use the term strongholds. There are places we had to regroup and recover as we put the foothold in going forward. The idea is from there we will make our stand against these crises that are at our borders. The other part is growing them, influencing our neighbors, because we're no longer independent in the places we live. We have intermarried, we've got intergenerational, relationships going that we have to think about, not just us as islanded, nations, but nations with neighbors and allies compromised of a global, community.
Yeah, absolutely. Its allies are so incredibly, and as Indigenous nations in Canada, we have our non-Indigenous allies, and they're important. What advice would you give to our nations up here on the constructive, collaborative, reciprocal, respectful relationships, and how you garnish that, and then nourish it?
I think one thing is realizing our strength. The thing is, our people with that resiliency have developed a very tough skin in terms of, we're not looking for saviors. What we're looking for is collaborators. We're looking for people to bring resources and opportunities so that we can lift ourselves up. I think as Indigenous communities, the outside world views us as impoverished. We don't believe that. Maybe that had been at one time, but the idea is, going forward, we want to be the result of working hard and putting in the effort to be able to, again, regenerate our economies.
That is extremely well said. Any last points to our viewers? You've got a lot of people interested in this incredible organization and looking into leaders like yourself.
Well, as an entrepreneur, Navajo Power exists because we needed to see different. When I looked at the energy spectrum, I didn't see me or my people in the executive roles of energy corporations, and that has to change. If we're going to own that direction going forward, our financial institutions, our energy companies, all of them have to be representative of us, meaning that we need to promote our people into those places, and we need to occupy those corporations.
Brilliant. So on Anishinaabe, we would say Miigwech, and Navajo, you would say? Akia?
Akia.
Akia. Brett. Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you.